Hello and welcome to another Cards Unbarred episode. My name's Ryan, and in this video I'm going to show you the 2 to 5 player game TRICKTAKERs designed by Hermit. Now, TRICKTAKERs was originally designed and published back in 2021 by Hermit, and that version was actually the Japanese only version. Now, the one I'm going to be showing today is going to be the new English version that is being published by Portland Game Collective. And this is going to be sort of a Kickstarter preview video. So all of the components and everything you're going to see are extremely prototype, which I really want to point that out. Some of the things are even like just made by hand. So all of these things will show English on them, but just know these are prototype components that will be showing off the new Portland Game Collective edition. To see the final components, be sure to check out the Kickstarter page, or if you're watching this a little bit later, check out their website or the Board Game Geek page as well. Now, TRICKTAKERs is a highly technical, asymmetric, crazy, bonkers trick-taking game. Now, Hirokin, the designer of the game, made this after he had played Root, Nokus Dice, and Skull King, just to name a few. So if you've ever played any of those games before, you're going to see some of the similarities in this game. So yeah, let's go to the table and I'll show you how to play. The game of TRICKTAKERs consists of the following components: 8 character cards, 8 two-player mini character cards, 40 playing cards with 4 different suits, red, blue, green, and black, ranked 1 to 9, 2 white flag cards, and 2 rare cards. There are some specific character cards. There is a King rare card that has a blue back on it. There are 7 Berserker cards. The Berserker card itself that is double-sided, the Berserker rare card, the Berserker white flag card, and the 4 10s in the red, blue, green, and black suit. And those 6 cards all have pink backs on them. There are 2 initial equipment cards for the adventurer, along with 15 item cards, 3 which are initial blue items, 3 that are initial red items, and the other 9 are regular items. There are 6 ruler task cards, 3 of them which are normal, and 3 of them which are hard. Continuing along with character-specific pieces, there is a Resistance Revolt token, a Collector Reserve token, a Gambler Bidding token along with a Gambler Bidding card, and 4 Ruler Lead tokens. There are 5 double-sided player aid cards for the hierarchy of trick play, and there are 6 game aid cards that are also double-sided. And lastly, the game comes with 1 round card, as well as 5 gold crowns, 6 black crowns, and 20 10-point tokens and 20 50-point tokens. The game will also include new Portland Game Collective variant cards. There will be 10 ruler task cards, 2 of them which have a new difficult level, 4 hard and 4 normal, and 4 character variant cards. Now, taking a closer look at the character cards, you'll see in the top left corner, there's the name for the character itself. The top right corner is the character priority number. This will be important for a few different reasons, which I'll explain later in the video, but whenever I'm referring to character priority, I'm always referring to that number in the top right corner. The lower the number and the higher up the letter is, so A, is a higher character priority. So the King having a 1A is the highest character priority. In the middle, you'll see the art for the character. Right below that will be all of the special abilities for that specific character. Some characters will have abilities that will trigger immediately during setup. Others will be on their turn. All 5 basic characters will have this round 3 extra ability. And some will be when they win the trick. And at the bottom part of the card, you'll see the number of points they will get, depending on the number of tricks they win, and potentially the winning the game condition if they take that specific number of tricks as well. One other card that I did want to point out, because this is new to the Portland Game Collective edition of TRICKTAKERs, is the Gambler Bidding card. In the original Japanese version, there was a 6-sided die that was custom 0 to 5, and you would put the die face on the number of tricks you think you'd take. Well, in this game, the at least original version, if you did not get the upgrade pack, is going to include this bidding card and a Gambler Bidding token along with it. When you make your bid, you simply place the token on the card, and then there's a section underneath for bet points where you will put the number of points that you bet. You separate them from your regular supply and you put them down under there. It makes it a lot easier to remember which points are towards your bet and which ones are still in your supply. Before I go into the specifics of Trick Takers and how a round and winning the crowns and points and everything, I want to explain the card hierarchy as well as standard trick play in this game. So as you can see set up on the table right now is the normal hierarchy that you will see for card strength. If a card is towards the bottom, it is considered to be weaker, and if it goes to the top, it's considered to be stronger. So the white flag at the bottom is the weakest card. Then you have the red, blue, and green suits, which are the next strongest card. Whenever a color of that suit is played, it is considered the lead suit. It is stronger than the other two. So if a player leads with the red suit and another player plays a blue or a green card, red is going to be considered stronger than blue or green regardless of the number. Then you have black, which is also known as the trump suit, that is stronger than red, blue, and green. So even if that is played off suit, it will win the trick, even with a lower number. If somebody leads red and I play black, my black card is stronger than that red card. Next, you have the rare card. This card is stronger than any number card, red, blue, green, or black. And then the Berserker card, which is the strongest card in the game. There are some caveats to all of these cards, but as I said, I will explain them in further detail when I get to that character itself. But in a standard trick, that is the normal hierarchy that you'd see when cards are played. Trick Takers is a must-follow trick-taking game, which means when the lead player chooses to play a card, they can play any card they want. So let's say they play a 9 red. Every other player in the trick must play a card of the same color if they have that in their hand. So this red 3, red 7, red 1. The highest card played among all cards in the trick of lead suit will win if there's no trump, rare, or berserker card. So in this case, the 9 red will win the trick. That player will collect all of the cards in a stack and put them face down in front of them, and then they will lead the next trick, again playing any card that they choose. Let's say they play this green 7. Now, if a player does not have a card of the same color as the lead, then they can play any card they want. So let's say the next player doesn't have green, and they choose to play a black 2. The other 2 players also have green, so they will play their green cards. Then in this case, as I mentioned, trump is stronger than green, so the black suit is trump, and this player will actually win the trick, collecting all the cards, putting them in a face-down stack in front of them, and leading the next trick. Now, the white flag and rare card, as well as the Berserker card, are known as colorless cards. This means they do not have a red, blue, green, or black color to them, and they can be played at any time, regardless of what the lead suit was, or even if they have a color of the lead suit as well. Let's say the first player leads this black 5, and the next player has a black card in their hand, but it's only the black 3. And they're not going to win the trick with that currently since it's a weaker card than the black 5. So they are going to play this rare card they have in their hand, which they can do because it is colorless and can be played at any time. Just like I said, the white flags are as well. So maybe the next player chooses to play a white flag, even if they also have a black card in hand. And the final player decides to play their black card as well because they don't have a white or a rare. Now, the rare card is the strongest card in the trick, so they will collect all the cards, putting it face down, leading the next trick. In Trick Takers, a round will consist of 5 tricks, so in this case, only 2 more tricks need to be played and the round would end. 2 other things I wanted to mention is whenever there are multiple cards that have the highest strength in the trick, the first one played will always win. So in this case, if a player chooses to lead a rare card and another player chooses to play a rare card into the same trick, the first one played will win. The other thing to mention is if a player leads with a colorless card, the white flag, the rare, or the Berserker card, then the next player to play a non-colorless card will actually determine what the lead suit is. So the first player leads with a rare card, no lead color has been determined. Next player plays a white flag, there's still no lead color. Then finally the next player chooses to play a green card. So now green is considered the lead suit for any other players to follow that are remaining in the trick. So final player plays a green 5. After all 5 tricks have been played, each player will look to see the number of tricks they took and if they have the majority of tricks among all players. If you have an outright majority, meaning there's no tie for the most number of tricks between all players, that player will gain a gold crown. So in this situation I have here, the king has 3 tricks, the gambler has 2, resistance and hermit have 0. So the king player has the outright majority with 3 tricks, and they will gain the first round's gold crown. Then, between all the other players, you look to see did any player take 0 tricks. If they did, they are eligible for a black crown. You'll notice there are only 2 black crowns that can be awarded each round. In this case, the resistance and the hermit both got 0, so they would take a black crown each. And that would be fine because only 2 black crowns were handed out since only 2 players were eligible. Now let's just say, for example's sake here, the resistance took a trick, the king had 4 tricks. There is an ability on the resistance that will allow them to get a black crown, which I'll explain shortly. But in this situation, there are 3 characters that are eligible for a black crown. The gambler took 0, the hermit took 0, and the resistance took 1 with their revolt trick. So in this case, whenever there are more players eligible for a black crown than can be awarded, you need to look at that character priority order. The higher the character priority will take the black crown first. So the gambler is 2A, they would gain a black crown. The resistance is 3A, so they would take the black crown, and the hermit would not get a black crown since they are 4A. To set up for a game of Trick Takers, you will complete these steps in the following order. Give each player 30 point tokens, and placing the rest nearby as the common supply. Next, place the round card near the middle of the table, and add the 3 gold crowns and 6 black crowns on the appropriate spaces on the round card. Place the 5 basic characters, the king through the Berserker, in the middle of the table. It is recommended for your first game to not include the adventurer, collector, or ruler, so their 3 character cards along with any components related to those characters should be returned back to the box. Next, shuffle all 40 playing cards and place them near the character cards, creating the draw deck. Make sure you leave room near the deck for the discard pile. Note that cards will be drawn throughout the round or during setup. If the draw deck is ever empty, take all cards in the discard pile, shuffle them, and then put them back as the new draw pile. Then give each player 1 suit hierarchy card, making sure the normal hierarchy side is face up, and that is the side with the white around the border, not the orange border. And finally, choose a lead player and give them the lead player token. The last person to win a game of Trick Takers will be the lead player, otherwise you can choose randomly. At the start of the round, deal 5 cards to each player. Players are allowed to look at these 5 cards that were dealt to them, but make sure to keep them hidden from the other players. Next, starting from the lead player and going clockwise, each player is going to select 1 character that is face up in the middle of the table and put it in front of themselves. Any unselected character should be set aside for the next round. Next, each player will want to set up their character with any setup conditions that are listed on their character card. Now, I'll explain these in more detail when I get to each character individually, but just note that all players can do setups simultaneously to make things go a little bit quicker. However, you are supposed to do them in character priority order. So if a player does ask to do that, then the table must do it in character priority order. But if everyone at the table can agree to do it simultaneously, then that is okay as well. Most characters, especially the basic characters, don't necessarily need that priority order. There are some other characters, some of the advanced ones, as well as the expansion characters that definitely rely on that character priority order. So in this case, I'm just going to have all the characters do their setup simultaneously. The king took the king rare card and discarded another card. The resistance player took the revolt token. The berserker player discarded their entire hand, took the berserker card and 4 other berserker cards from the berserker deck, and the hermit didn't have any setup. Now that all players are set up, we will go into trick play. So just to show a quick example of all of this after it's been set up and that play, the king player will lead the first trick, with this being their hand, and they're going to choose to lead the 5 red. The resistance player must follow suit if they have it, which they have this red 1 and red 8, but they could also play this rare card if they wanted to, since rares can be played at any time, and they will choose to play this 8 red. The berserker is next. They have their red 10 they must play. They can also play their berserker, the white flag, or this rare card. They have a lot of options, and they're just going to play the red 10. And finally, the hermit player will draw a card from the deck, choose any one card to discard, and then they will play this red since they can follow suit. The highest of lead suit, since there's no trump or rare cards or berserker, is going to be the berserker card itself with the 10. So they will take all the cards, put them face down, and lead the next trick. They choose to play this rare card. And the hermit will draw a card and discard a card and choose to play that 7 green. Now, because a colorless card was lead, there was no lead suit yet. The next player to play a colored card will determine what lead suit is. So in this case, the hermit is actually choosing that green is the lead suit. So now the king and the resistance player must follow with the green suit if they have it, or of course can play a rare or white flag. Now in this case, if the king player chose to play this rare card, they will not win the trick, because whenever there is a tie in strength for the highest card in the trick, the first one played will always win. So the berserker rare card is the same strength as a king rare card, and the berserker was played first, so the berserker would actually be winning this trick. So with that in mind, the king player is just going to play this 5 black, and the resistance player is going to also play their rare card so they can make sure they lose with it. Berserker wins the trick, collects all the cards, and leads the next trick. Fast forwarding to the end of the round, the berserker took 4 tricks, the hermit 0, the king 1, and the resistance 0. So the first thing we do to check is the majority of tricks for the gold crown, which goes to the berserker. So they will take that. And then we look to see all players that are eligible for a black crown, which is the hermit and the resistance. There are only 2, so both of them will gain the black crown. And then now all players will collect points based on the number of tricks they took on their character card. So the berserker is going to gain 80 points. The hermit will gain 50. The king will gain 20. And the resistance won't gain any points, so since they actually only scored during the revolt trick if they win with it, which they did not. Now you will check for crown victory. You look to see, does any player have 2 gold crowns? In this case, No. You check for 3 black crowns, in this case also no. And no character win condition was also triggered during the round. So none of those have triggered. It's not the end of the third round, so now we go to the second round. To set up for the next round, collect all of the playing cards, shuffle them, and put them in a 40 card draw deck again in the middle of the table. Make sure to separate any character specific cards that were in the tricks that were compiled together and set those off to the side. And deal out 5 cards to each player again. Then all players will return all character cards to the middle of the table so that they can be selected for the next round. Now, choosing a character in round 2 and round 3 is not the same as round 1. You don't just start the lead player and go clockwise from there. You actually have a specific order that characters will be selected from. And it goes in this exact order. The player that took the king will choose a new character first. However, they cannot choose the king again. They must pick a different character in play. They will do this regardless of any other situation that I'm about to explain the other orders. No matter what type of crowns they have, the king player will choose the next character first. So the player in the bottom left will choose one of their characters. Let's say they pick the Hermit this time. Now, all other players that do not have a gold crown will compare the number of points that they have with each other. So in this case, the bottom right player and the top left player do not have a gold crown. Top right has a gold crown, so they're not in this situation. The top left has 30 points, and down here they have 80 points in the bottom right. So the player with the least amount of points will go next. So the player over here is going to choose their character. They choose the gambler. Then the player in the bottom right will choose a character. They will pick the king. And then finally, all players that do have a gold crown will compare their points with each other, and the lower number of points would choose next, and then higher amount of points after that. In this case, only one player had the gold crown, so they're just going last. But if it's a future round, round 3, there could be 2 players with gold crowns, so they would need to compare each other. This is an important reminder. Only gold crowns are taken into consideration in all of this stuff I'm explaining. The black crowns and who has or who doesn't have those do not matter. It's only gold crowns that are important. So last player chooses resistance, and then finally the last character not picked, the Berserker, goes off to the side for now. The other important thing to mention, if there is ever a tie in points between characters whenever they're comparing who goes next, so let's say this player had 30 points and they also had 30 points down here, you actually need to check your character priority order from the previous round. So this player was the resistance, this player was the Hermit, so they actually have higher character priority, so they would pick before they would, and that's only if they're tied for points. From there, all players will set up their characters just as they did round 1. You will also play tricks just like you did round 1. However, the one difference is the player who has the lead player token actually chooses who leads the first trick. It can't include themselves, but they can pick another player if they want. The person who would have the lead player token at this point is the player that has the least amount of points without a gold crown. So the gambler would take the lead player token. Once all 5 tricks are completed for round 2, you'll hand out the gold crown, black crowns, points, and lead player token just like you did round 1. And if any player has 2 gold crowns, they'd win the game. Or if a win condition was met, they'd win the game. If not, you go on to round 3. Selecting characters and dealing out cards and playing tricks all is the same for round 3. The only difference is players can, during their character setup, spend a black crown to discard any number of cards from their hand to draw back up. So if this was round 3 and the gambler player has a single black crown, they can spend that black crown and discard any number of cards they want and draw back that many number of cards. Again, you do this during your character setup, and you can do it at any point during that setup. And now I will go into all of the unique abilities for each character. And the one thing to keep in mind is as I explain any character ability, note that they will directly contradict anything I've explained previously. And whenever that happens, always know that the character ability takes precedence over whatever I've explained before. Essentially, all these characters are going to be breaking rules that I've explained previously. First up is the King. During setup, you will take the King rare card and add it to your hand and discard any other card from your hand. So if this is the King's hand, they will put the King rare into their hand and choose any other card to discard for the round. As mentioned during round play, the King has the King's privilege, meaning in the next round, the player who took the King will choose a character first, regardless of any other criteria, but you cannot select the King again. And in round 3, the King will actually gain twice as many points as listed on the character card for the number of tricks they take. Next up, we have the Gambler. When you take the Gambler, you will have 4 steps during setup that you must follow in this exact order. First, you will immediately gain 20 points. Then you will discard any number of cards from your hand and draw back up to 2 times. This entire step is optional, so you do not have to do any of these. You can do it 0, 1, or 2 times. So let's just say this is the Gambler's hand. They choose to discard these 3 cards. They'll draw 1, 2, 3 cards back, and they can choose again to discard any number of cards and draw back up. So maybe they decide to do all 5 and draw 5 cards back. After they've done this, they will then take their bidding token and place it on the space from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the number of tricks they think they will win in the round. So let's say they decide to put it on 1. And then they can bet up to 50 of their points that they will hit their bid. So maybe they choose 30 points. When you make your bet, make sure you put them down at this bottom section of your bidding card and keep them separate from your personal supply of points. In round 3, you can actually bet up to 100 points instead of just 50. Also note, making a bid is mandatory, but betting points is optional. You can choose to bet 0 if you're not fully confident that you'll hit your bid, but you must make a bid of some amount. At the end of the round, once you've determined the number of tricks the gambler has taken, you will look to see if they hit their bid. So going back to this example where they bet 30 points and bid 1 trick, if they took exactly 1 trick, then they would take the number of points on their card based on the bid they hit. So zooming in on the gambler just a little bit here, you can see a bid of 1 gets 60 points. So they will take 60 points from the supply and add those to their personal supply. And then you will look to see if they bet any. You made a bet of 30 points, so you will essentially double your bet. You gain the 30 points back, and you gain 30 points from the common supply, essentially earning 60 points. So your total amount of points gained are 120, 60 from your bid of 1, and 60 from your bet, which you had bet 30 points. Going over another quick example of that. Let's say they bid 2 and took 2 tricks and bet 20 points. When you make a bid of 2, you gain 90 points from the common supply. And then double your bet, so get the 20 points back and take 20 more points from the common supply. Now the gambler is an all or nothing character. Hitting these bids is a huge amount of points. As you can see, you can score a lot that way. However, if you fail to hit your bid, you will just lose all of your points. So taking this exact example, the gambler bid 2, but only took 1 trick. And let's say they bet 40 points. Because you did not hit your bid, you will not score any points from the character card itself. And any points that you bet get returned to the common supply. Following up the gambler is the resistance. Now the resistance is the most confusing character up front, but hopefully I can explain it in detail for it to make a little bit of sense here. So when you take the resistance, during setup, you'll gain the revolt token and put it next to your character card. Once during the round, you can play a card from your hand into the trick, and on your turn, put your revolt token on top of your card to trigger what is known as the revolt trick. What this does is it flips the strength hierarchy so that the weakest card wins the trick instead of the strongest. And this is on your player aid revolts hierarchy, as you can see in the orange border. That's what this is referring to. So on the normal hierarchy, during every other trick in the game, the strongest card is going to win the trick. But during a revolt trick, the weakest card will win the trick. So making a trick example here. In this situation, blue was the lead suit, and the resistance player played their revolt token, creating the revolt trick and changing it so the weakest card wins. The 3 blue is the weakest card in the trick since it's the lowest number of that lead suit. So the resistance player is going to win this trick instead of the 7 blue, which would normally win. The other important thing to mention is that lead suit ability is nullified during the revolt trick. So there's no lead suit advantage, as it's called. So if the lead player chooses to play a green 9, the next player doesn't have green, plays a blue 2, the resistance player plays a blue 1, puts their revolt card token on the card, triggering a revolt trick. This now makes it so the lowest card among the red, blue, and green suit will win. The lead suit gets ignored at this point. It's simply the lowest number is the weaker card. So if the trick looked like this, the 1 blue is the lowest number among these 3 suits. So the blue 1 is the resistance player, and they will win the trick because they have the weakest card. Again, I'm just going to hammer this home a little because this is usually the part that confuses players, is the lead suit advantage is removed. Having the lead suit, no matter the number, even if it was a lower number than what the resistance played, it's all about the number itself. And as I mentioned with the rare cards or any other card, whenever there's a tie for strength, the first one played would win. So in the situation where the lead player actually played a green 1 and the resistance player played later into the trick, the green 1 would be winning because that card was played first. It is the weakest card in this trick, and it was played as the first card, so it will win. And the other thing to mention is the trump suit is still stronger than these 3 suits. And remember, the weaker card wins the trick. So if we go back to this situation, and let's say this player over here played a black 1, even though these are both 1s, the black suit is still stronger than these 3 cards, and the weaker card wins the trick. So the blue 1 is winning the trick. Couple other things to mention as well with the resistance. The Hermit's effect, which I haven't explained, I'll explain next as the next character. Their white flag ability will be nullified. And for the Berserker, which I'll explain after the Hermit, their 10s and 1 strengths are also nullified. This will make more sense once I get to those characters, but essentially, any card strengthening ability is nullified. And the revolt trick just simply cares about the weakest card in the trick. Now, if you win the trick as the resistance player during the revolt trick, you will score a number of points based on the card you won with. If you win with a white flag, it's 30 points. A 1, 2, or 3, no matter which color between red, blue, and green that it is, it's 50 points. A 4, 5, and 6 is 80 points. A 7, 8, or 9 is 100 points. Again, no matter the color. And if you manage to win the trick with any black card, does not matter 1 through 9, you will immediately win the game. That is your win condition as the resistance player. This is something that, and I'm going to want to point this out, I'm trying not to point out strategy or anything in a game, but especially in a 3-player game, this is one thing that a lot of players don't realize at the beginning and they think the resistance is way overpowered, or as people like to say, broken. Because if somebody leads a black card, you must follow suit. And if all other players are choosing to play these black cards, it makes it easier for the resistance player to come in with a black card, trigger a revolt token, make it a revolt trick, and win the game. So whenever the resistance is in a round, be careful about leading with the trump suit or colorless cards like the Berserker or the Rare, where other players might have to play a black card. As long as there's one red, blue, green, or white flag in the trick, they can't win that way, but just keep that in mind. And for the third round, with the resistance, they will actually gain 30 points for every trick that you win. Why this is important is because for the resistance player, if they win a single trick in the round, and it is the revolt trick, they are still eligible for a black crown. Meaning you can take a single trick and still gain a black crown, which normally requires you to take 0 tricks. If you win a trick that is not the revolt trick, doesn't matter how many, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, you will not be eligible for a black crown. Of course, you can still take 0 tricks and still get the black crown. But in the third round, you get 30 points for every trick you win on top of the revolt trick. So sometimes you don't really mind winning as many tricks as possible. Next up is the Hermit, which is probably the most straightforward character along with the King. On your turn, before you play a card, you can draw the card from the top of the deck and discard any card from your hand, including the one you just drew. So maybe you decide to discard that one, and then you'd play a card into the trick as normal. You do this at the start of every turn on all 5 tricks. So in the next trick, draw a card, pick one to discard, play a card into the trick. Next trick, draw a card, discard any card, play a card into the trick. The other important thing with the Hermit is the white flag ability that they have. White flags become stronger than rare cards when played by the Hermit. So if the trick looked something like this, normally the rare card is the strongest card in the trick, so it would be winning. However, the Hermit player chose a white flag to play, and it becomes stronger than the rare card. So the Hermit will win the trick, and every time they do this, the Hermit player will immediately gain 30 points from the common supply to their own personal supply. It does not matter how many rares are in the trick. There could be 1, 2, or 3, or 4, but they will only ever get 30 points for doing so. If it's in the third round, they will gain 100 points instead of 30. As I mentioned before with the resistance player, during the revolt trick, that white flag being stronger than the rare card is nullified. So a white flag is still the weakest card. That might sound a little confusing, so just remember the weakest card wins during a revolt trick. If the white flag was considered stronger than a rare card, it wouldn't win during a revolt trick. Because the ability is nullified, a white flag goes back to being the weakest card, and the weakest card would win. But because of that, if the Hermit does play a white flag in that situation, they won't gain the 30 points because they're not winning it with their ability of a white flag beating a rare card. It's just winning from the revolt trick that was triggered. And the last of the 5 basic characters to explain is the Berserker. When you pick the Berserker during setup, you will take all 5 cards that you drew or were dealt to you at the beginning of the round and discard them. And from the special Berserker cards that have the pink backs, you will always take the Berserker card that's double-sided and add it to your hand, and then take the remaining 6 cards, shuffle them, and give yourself 4 of them, placing the other 2 face down nearby. Just a reminder of what the Berserker deck consists of is a rare card, a white flag card, and the 10s of all 4 suits: black, blue, red, and green. So let's just say I was given those, put these back down. So the Berserker has the strongest cards, theoretically, in the game, which makes them a very powerful character. However, their 10s, as well as the Berserker card, have some downsides to them. As you can see, printed below the suit icon itself on the 10s, and then in the bottom corners on the Berserker cards, you'll see a 1 inside a little triangle. This is a reminder that the 1 of that suit will beat that card. So in this case, the blue 10 will lose to the blue 1 if it's played in the same trick. If this is what the trick looked like, normally the 10 would win since it's the strongest card, but 1s become stronger than the matching 10s of that suit. So in this case, this 1 essentially becomes an 11. If you think about it, it becomes an 11 blue, is the strongest card and would win the trick. Now, the important thing to note is it's only of the matching color. So in this case, if the 10 red was lead and everyone else didn't have red and played blue for some reason, this blue 1 is not stronger than this red 10. So the red 10 would win the trick. The Berserker card, all 1s become stronger than the Berserker card. So in this case, no matter what 1, red, blue, green, or black, it will be stronger than the Berserker card. And just like every other situation, if multiple 1s are played into the same trick with a Berserker, the first one played wins the trick. So if the Berserker is lead, this player goes red 1, blue 2, blue 1, the red 1 is going to win the trick because these 2 cards are the strongest cards in the trick, but the first one played wins, the red 1 in this case. Now, of course, if there are no reds or no 1s in the trick, then the Berserker card is going to win because it is the strongest card in the game, even if a rare card gets played. If you play a rare card like that, Berserker's still going to win. Now, in the third round, the Berserker actually has a new win condition, and that is if you win 0 tricks in the final round only, you will win the game. As I mentioned earlier, you can spend black crowns during setup in round 3 to discard cards from your hand and draw back up. When you are the Berserker player, you can only draw from the 2 left out cards from the Berserker deck. You don't draw from the regular draw deck when you do this. So at most, you can only discard 2 cards. The other important thing is you can never discard the Berserker card itself. It must be pink back cards getting discarded and drawing back pink cards. You can choose to discard 1 and draw 1 or discard 2 and draw 2. And it's random, the 2 you draw, so you can't choose between the 2 if you're only doing 1. You just set them aside and then you'll take the top 1 if that's what you wanted to do. So now that we've explained all 5 basic characters, after you've played the game a few times and have become comfortable with all of those characters and how the game plays, you can move on to the 3 advanced characters: Adventurer, Collector, and Ruler. And those will be explained now, starting with the Adventurer. During setup, when you take the Adventurer, you're going to separate the 3 initial blue item cards and the 3 initial red item cards from the 9 regular item cards. The regular have a brownish banner at the top, and then as you can see, the blue and red banners for the blue and red initial item cards. From there, you're going to choose one of the 3 blue items to put on your initial equipment blue item card. So maybe I choose Invisibility Potion. And from the red ones, you'll choose one of those to put on the red card. So we choose Berserker Axe. Then you're going to take the 4 other initial item cards and shuffle them in to the regular item deck, which will create the item card deck for the round. You'll just place that in a face down pile near your character card. Then on your turn, before you play a card into the trick, you may use one of your available items. Available items are always face up on equipment cards and are available to see for all players. These should not be hidden. All other players should know what items you have available at all times. When you use an item, you will remove it from the equipment card, placing it directly above it, and trigger its ability in full. Once you've done that, you will then flip a new item from the top of the item deck and replace it on the item card, equipment card that the item came from. Then you will take the item you used and put it in the discard pile, which will just go right next to the draw deck itself. You can only ever use one item per trick. So I would play that item, trigger its ability, draw a new card, play a card in the trick gets resolved. When it comes back to my turn, for the next trick, I can use one of these item cards. One other important thing to know is you can't discard an item card just 'cause. If you want to remove it from the equipment card, you must use it. You can't simply just discard an item. If you win a trick, when you collect the cards in the trick itself, you will make them into a pile and put it next to your other equipment cards, creating a new equipment that you have and leveling up your character. What you will do is then take a new card from your item deck and put it on top of that pile, so you now have more items available to you to use during trick play. Now, one thing to note, at the very bottom of the item cards, they all say unused with a positive or negative amount of points. And this is at the end of the round after all 5 tricks. For all item cards that you have face up, you will gain or lose those points. If you use the card, it'll go to the discard pile. It was used, so you do not count those points anymore. It's only the ones that are on your available stacks face up. And the adventurer will add up the number of points they got for the number of tricks along with all of those items. Now, I'm not going to explain every item card because they do tell you exactly what they do on there, and the rulebook goes in a little bit more detail as well, which is very helpful. But there are these 6 that I just want to go over really quickly, so you might not, in case you have any questions on these ones, since these ones might be a little bit confusing. But the 3 red initial items, the important thing to note with these are you can only play them on when you play a color card into the trick. So if you played a rare white flag, you would not be able to use these items. These items are specific to manipulating red, blue, green, or black colored cards. The white orb allows the card you play to become a white flag. The reason why I'm mentioning this one is because let's say the trick looked like this so far. Green was the lead suit, and the resistance player played the revolt token on this green 3. And your hand had these 4 cards. Now, normally you'd have to play this green 8 for the must follow purposes, and the green 3 is still winning the trick. But if you're doing the white orb, the card that you will play is going to become a white flag. And because a white flag is a colorless card, you can actually play any card from your hand that you want because it's going to be a white flag when it's played into the trick. So if you trigger the white orb, so maybe it's on your initial equipment here, you will put it in front of you, you'll trigger it, which means that say you play this red 3, and now that card is a white flag even though you had that green 8. The other one to mention is the Fairy Mischief card. This makes it so that you must reveal all cards that are currently in your hand for the rest of the round. So if this was maybe the 3rd trick in, these were the 3 cards I had left, I would just put them face up on the table for all players to see. The thing is, if you were to draw any new cards, those cards would remain hidden for the rest of the round. So maybe on my other equipment, I had the Map of Destiny, and on the next turn, I play this Map of Destiny, and I choose to discard these 2 cards. The 2 new cards that I draw remain hidden from my opponents. They don't get to see these, but this red 6 still stays face up on the table. And the final one is the Dragon Doll, where your card becomes stronger than rare cards. So in the example, let's say the trick looked like this so far, and you were the adventurer, you play that blue 1 with this Dragon Doll. Your blue 1 will be stronger than any rare card that is played in the trick, which now makes it winning, because the strongest card will win the trick. And if this becomes stronger than a rare, then that is now winning. The important thing to note is you can use this item on your turn, even if a rare card isn't in the trick or ever played in the trick. But if that happens, then your card just reverts to its normal strength because there's no rare. So it can't be stronger than a rare, so it's just a blue 1 now. So this blue 6 would win the trick. Second to last character is the Collector. When you grab the Collector, you will take the reserve token and put it next to your card during setup. And then on your turn during trick play, after you play a card into the trick, you can put your reserve token on any card that's already in the trick. And you will collect that card after the trick is resolved. So let's just say blue 6 is led, blue 5 is played, it's now your turn, and you play a blue 3. You can take the reserve token and put it on any one of these 3 cards. Let's say you choose the blue 5. Then the final player plays a card into the trick, say black 2. Now this player is going to win the trick, but you will collect the card you reserved first. So you take the reserve token, put it back to your character, because you get to use this every trick. You'll take the 5 that you collected, put it face down nearby, and then the player who wins a trick takes their cards and puts it in a pile. Now, because you can still win tricks, you want to make sure that you keep track of the number of tricks you collect as well as the pile of collected cards you make. Because one important thing is the collector cannot gain gold or black crowns. So even if you win 4 tricks in the round and you have the majority of tricks or 3 tricks, whatever it is, you can't gain the gold crown. You can stop other players from gaining the gold crown, but you yourself will not gain it. Same thing with black crowns. If you don't win any tricks, you can't gain a black crown. You're simply trying to collect these cards, but if you manage to win tricks, you can still stop other players from doing so. So if you win tricks, just try and remember as you keep them all together. Because the important thing is you can always look back at the cards you've collected, but make sure you don't show them to other players. And if you manage to win the trick, you collect all cards that were played in the trick. So let's just say a 5 blues played, 1 blue, you play a rare card, you put your reserve token on the 5, but you know you're probably going to win. Red 3 is played. You collect all 4 of those cards and put it in your collection pile. At the end of the round, all 5 tricks, you will reveal all of the cards that you collected. Let's just toss in a few more here and see what we get out of it. And from here, you're trying to make combinations of cards. The type of combinations you can get for points are shown on your character card. So you can do a 3 flush, 3 straight, 3 of a kind, 3 straight flush, 4 of a kind, 5 straight flush, or a 9 straight flush, and that's how you win the game. That is getting all 9 cards of a single suit. Now, one thing is rare cards count as wilds. They can be used in replace of any number or color you need it to. The thing is, though, you can only ever make 3 combinations in total, and you can only use 1 rare card per combination. So I make a 3, 4, 5, 3 straight, and then a 7, 8, 9 for a 3 straight, and then these 3 cards I don't get to use for anything. Now, every 2 cards that are unused are minus 10 points. So I would lose 10 points for these, and then I would score my 10 points for each of those. Now, white flags can never be used, so you want to avoid trying to collect white flags. These will always go towards your unused cards, as well as the Berserker card. And lastly, we have the ruler. When you take the ruler, you are going to grab these 4 lead token cards, putting them nearby your character card, and then these 6 task cards, 3 of them which are normal, and 3 of them which are hard. You can also see them on the backs. You will give each other player 1 of these task cards. The 3 normal tasks are all related to not taking a specific color, and the hard tasks are related to taking a specific color. This is the one character where the character priority of setting up is important, so you should always wait until all other players have set up their characters before you hand out these tasks. When you hand them out, just simply put them in front of the other player, face up. These are public information for all other players to see what tasks somebody has. When a task gets completed, you'll flip it over to its backside to show it's been completed, to show that you're going to be gaining those points. The player that completes the task will gain those points, but you as the ruler also gain those points. However, if a task is failed, the player that you gave the task to that failed it loses the points, but you as the ruler do not lose those points. If all tasks get completed by all players, you're going to get 10 bonus points. And the other thing that the ruler is trying to go for is taking a black card and only winning 1 trick. You'll get 10 and 20 points respectively for doing that. And if you manage to take 2 or more tricks during the round that do not have any red, blue, or green cards, meaning there's only black, rares, white flags, berserkers in it, then you can win the game. The other thing which is special with these lead token cards is this allows you to initially ignore the must follow rule. So to explain that in more detail, let's get a situation set up. So in this situation, the blue 8 was led. The next player went with a blue 4, followed by a blue 5 on the third player. It is now the ruler's turn, and this is their hand. Now, in must follow rules, they'd have to play this blue 1 or the blue 7, which will not win the trick since the blue 8 is the strongest card. Now, the ruler can initially ignore the must follow rule and play any card they want. So they can choose to play this red 9. And when you do that, you then need to take the matching token of whatever the lead suit is and put it on the card you just played, turning that card into the lead suit, aka you've now followed lead suit. So this red 9 is a blue 9, which is actually going to win the trick. And then once you win the trick, you'll take the 4 cards from the trick, put it into a pile, and put the lead token next to your character again. All 4 of these are always available to you the entire round. These are not once per use or whatever. You get these available the entire round. So on a future trick, if somebody leads green and it comes to you, you could choose to ignore that and change it, which of course this card would win, but you get the idea. This will also allow you to hand players certain cards that they might be trying to complete a task for. So let's say in this situation, the player who's got the green 8, which is currently winning the trick, needs to take a red card and they haven't done that yet. As the ruler, you could choose to play this green 6, initially ignoring the must follow rule since you have this green 4, and then add that token onto the red 6, which now makes it green, to follow suit. But as soon as the cards are taken from another player, the token's removed, it goes back to being a red 6. So this player has taken a red card. And that's sort of the idea behind the lead tokens. It's getting other players to complete their task, but also potentially making it easier for you to win a trick by playing higher number cards of another suit. Now, the other situation you could find yourself in is not having the lead suit in your hand when it comes turn to play a card. So in this case, blue is led, you do not have blue. And because you're not going to initially ignore the must follow rule, you don't actually have to place your tokens after you play a card, but you may choose to if you wanted to. So maybe the player who has the blue 9 is trying to take a green card. You could play the green card into the trick and just let them have it as normal. Or maybe you don't care about that or they don't have that and you just want to play the black 1 into the trick to take the trick. Or you don't want to win it, so you would choose to play the blue token on it, changing it to a blue 1 so the blue 9 player wins the trick. Just know if you can't follow, you don't have to play the tokens, it's optional. But if you can follow, you must tell players that you are ignoring the must follow and have to play the token on it. Now, before I explain any of the variant cards, I do want to mention that these are only recommended to be used after you've played the regular game many times and have been able to fully experience and enjoy that. Then if you want to look to change up some of your characters or see what these variants are, you can use them. All variants are modular, so you can mix and match and use them however you see fit. And the first one I'm about to explain, the ruler task cards, are 10 task cards that you can choose to add in along with the 6 other task cards, use them by themselves, or pick and choose whatever you want in any combination. There are 2 new cards that have a difficulty level that are worth 30 points when completed. There are 4 hards and 4 normals. Now, I'm not going to explain them in detail. These are pretty straightforward, but the one I do want to go into detail is the avoid lead suit for all 5 tricks. This means whichever character you give this to cannot play a card of a color that is of lead suit, which means if they lead a trick, unless they play a colorless card, a white flag, rare, or berserker, they will be playing the lead suit. And there are the 4 character variants, which you have the resistance 3-player, collector 3-player, collector 4 and 5-player, and the ruler 3 and 5-player. Whenever you use this, you will take the mini card when you draft the character and you'll put it over top of the larger card to show that you're using this instead. The way the resistance variant works is now whenever you win the revolt trick with a black card, instead of immediately winning the game, you will gain 100 points and the gold crown for that round, regardless of what character or player should have won it. If somebody else was the Berserker and won 3 tricks and you won the revolt trick with a black card, you take the gold crown instead of the Berserker player taking it. Otherwise, everything else is the same. The 3-player variant for the Collector has new meld types that are available. The 4 and 5 have very similar melds as well. The main difference is a 5 straight flush will win the game in a 3-player variant, whereas it's just 120 points in the 4 and 5 player. I'm not going to go over all of them because they are explained on these cards in pretty good detail and the rulebook. But the one thing to mention is the Collector can now win black crowns. They can't gain gold crowns still, but they are eligible for black crowns if they win 0 tricks. Otherwise, the rest of the play for the Collector is the same. And the Ruler is a 3 to 5 player variant. When you're playing with 3 players, you can give each other player 1 or 2 task cards. This means you could give one player 1 task and another player 2 tasks, or that player 2 tasks and that player 1 task, or you give both 2 or both 1. It is your choice how many tasks you want to give out to those players. You'll still get bonus points for completing all tasks. It's just worth a little bit more now. And you'll still get 10 points if you get a black card. But the important difference here is when you win only 1 trick, just like the resistance variant, you're going to gain the gold crown for the round regardless of who should have won the crown, along with getting 20 points. Now, if you're playing with both of these variants, the resistance variant and the ruler, and both characters are in play and they both trigger those, it goes back to character priority and the resistance player would gain the gold crown first. Now, the ruler, the new variant, also has only winning 1 trick with no red, blue, or green cards. The original is 2 tricks or more. This is only 1 trick. So the new ruler variant essentially makes the ruler focus on trying to win 1 trick and 1 trick only. Otherwise, that's everything you need to know to play Trick Takers. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below and I'll get to them as soon as I can. Thanks so much for watching.